Hello everyone, this is Lisa with Old Orchid Yarnery. I am here for our next building in color session. We are on our second pattern now. If you recall, last month we did this pattern here that was like a river running up the middle with the little embroidered embellishments. And now we're going to do something that is called double-ended knitting, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going to encourage you to be sure to read through all of the materials that she gives you in the book here. She gives some great hints, but I'm going to give you some hints as I go along as well. So here is mine so far that I've started. In this particular piece, we're using colors A and C, which for me was the cream color was A and the multi was my C. As before, I'm using it in one of my O-Snap bags because that really organizes the yarn and keeps it from getting tangled up. So I just have the two colors I'm using coming out with the snaps in between so that nothing gets tangled up. We don't have to manage the yarn quite as carefully as we did for the Intarsia last month, but you still want to try to keep it as tangle-free as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to zoom in a little bit on the chart here because I want to show you what's different about this chart. You'll notice that the row numbers, you've got row 1 and 2 on the right hand side and row 3 and 4 on the left hand side. So when the row number is on the right hand side, you're working right to left. When the row number is on the left hand side, you're working left to right across the chart. But I'm going to show you what that means as far as working with sliding the work back and forth on the needles. That's why it's called double-ended knitting. You have to use either a circular needle or straight double points for this type of knitting because we're sliding the work back and forth as we go. So let me zoom back out again and let's get started. All right, so I am on row 1. You'll see my really high-tech method of keeping track of my rows here. I've done 2 repeats. Here's my little note. If you can see that, 1 repeat was approximately 2 inches high by 5 inches wide. So I'm estimating I'm going to need maybe 18 repeats to get my 36 inches. We'll see, but that's just my estimate, so I have a target to aim for. All right, so let's start on row 1. Row 1 with the one starting over here on the right hand side is simply color A, and we're just knitting all the way across. Now, as with all the other charts, these dark lines right here indicate where the repeat is. So you would knit 1 and then you would knit all of these until you get to the last 2 stitches and then knit them again. But in this case, since there's nothing else going on, we're just going to knit straight across with color 1. So let me do that. Get myself situated here. I think you'll like this one. This one's been a lot of fun to do. I've really been enjoying it. All right. Now I knit continental style, as many of you already know, and I'm just going to go ahead and knit across. I'm not going to show English style because it's just knitting. So I'm hoping that many of you have finished your first panel and even gotten your embroidered embellishments done on it. I have to admit to you, I have not finished my embroidered embellishments yet, although I'm hoping to have those done before I see you in class. If you're watching this after the fact, then maybe you've already seen it. But I'm so close. And you know, something interesting, I've talked with several of you this last month, and I'm using Sueño as my solid colors, which is a merino bamboo blend, superwash. And oftentimes superwash can be known to stretch or to grow when you block it. And that is the case. I knit my panel 1 to 36 inches. And after I blocked it without stretching it or pinning it out aggressively at all I did was pin down the long sides that were curling. It blocked to 43 inches. So that grew 7 inches, which was way more than I was expecting. So I'm gonna wait and see how my other panels do. I may end up ripping that first panel back to get it to 36 inches blocked. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. I know that happened to at least one other person, that theirs blocked out quite a bit, but then somebody else's it didn't. So who knows? Not sure of that. Okay, now I've just finished row 1, so I've knit all the way across. Now row 2 starts over at the right side again. And it starts with my color C, that stitch right there. Well, my color C is attached over here where I first started. So the way I'm going to get back there is I'm going to simply slide all my stitches back to the other end of the needle. I'm going to leave my color 1 hanging out over, or color A hanging out over here on the left side. I'm going to slide all my stitches back to the right where my color C is waiting for me. And now I'm going to start knitting with that one. So this is the double-ended knitting. Each row, we're going to knit across, slide the stitches back, and then knit across again. And then we will turn. Knit across, slide the stitches back, and knit the row again. So row 2, I've got 1 stitch knit here, and then you see this V, and that indicates here that on the right side you're slipping one with the yarn in back, and then the rest of those I'm going to knit. So my repeat is after my first stitch knit is 1 slip and 4 knits, and 1 slip and 4 knits, and I will do that all the way across until I have 2 stitches left. So here we go with color C. Pull out a little yarn here so I can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to knit 1, and now I'm going to slip 1 with the yarn in back. And the reason I know where to keep that yarn, I don't necessarily have to pay too much attention to, what it says, the right side with yarn in back, the wrong side with yarn in front, is that I always want to slip my yarn on the wrong side of the work. So I'm going to keep my color C back here at the back of the work, and I'm going to slip this next stitch. And when you're slipping, it's always purlwise unless it says otherwise. So that means I'm just going to insert my needle tip in, and I'm going to simply move it over to the right needle. I don't want to twist it. If I were to slip it knitwise like this, going in as if to knit it, it's going to twist that stitch, and I don't want to do that. All I want to do is slip it from one needle to the next. So I'm going to do that, and now I'm going to knit 4. Oops. And because I've already done a couple of repeats here, you can see this is my column of slip stitches, so I know I'm at the right spot. So now I'm going to slip, and I'm going to knit 4 and slip, and I want to do this all the way across. This particular pattern with these 5-inch wide panels is really nice for demo because I can do the whole rows because they're quite short. So we will just go ahead and do 4 and slip 1 and 4 and slip 1. I'm going to do this until I have 2 stitches left according to the chart. However, I can just read it here on my work as well. So after you get a couple of repeats done, you'll be able to see it. So here's my 2 stitches left. According to the chart, that is 1 slip 1 and 1 knit. And that's what I'm showing here. There's my slip column and 1 knit. So that's row 2. So now to go to row 3 and 4, let me mark those off, 1 and 2. Row 3 and 4, we're going to turn our work. And now we're going to be working on the wrong side. And you see I've got both colors here at the beginning waiting for me again. That tells me that I'm getting ready to start on the first of that 2-row repeat. So row 3 again is simply purling, because I'm on the wrong side, so the plain square is on the wrong side purling. So I'm going to purl back with my white all the way across. And then we are going to do that slip 1 knit purl across with the other color, but right now we'll just start with this. So we're going to purl with our white all the way across. As I think you'll be able to see as you're doing this, and even as I'm demonstrating it, this is a fairly straightforward pattern, but it really creates a really pretty look. It looks a little more complicated than it actually is. All we're doing is knitting and purling and slipping. The tricky part here is sliding your work to the other end to do the other half of the 2-row repeat, or 2-row pairs, I guess. It's not a repeat. So, and I'm going to show you something when I get to the end of row 3. If you put your work down and you have not noted what row you're on or where you're at in the pattern, then there is a way you can find out. So let me just show you that when I get to the end of the row. Purling, purling all the way across. And almost to the end. Again, if you need to, you can look at those bold lines to see where the repeat is, but on these rows that are just all purl all the way across with one color, I don't think I really need to. I just know I'm purling all the way to the end. All right, so say I got interrupted and I had to put my work down. I am gonna mark off row 3, but say I did not do that and I put my work down and I got interrupted and I come back and I think, oh, I don't really know where I'm at right now. Well, I can look at it and I see that one color is coming off the left-hand side and one color is coming off the right-hand side. So what that tells me is that I am in the middle of that 2-row sequence. I've completed one of them. So then I just have to look at the pattern and see, all right, am I on a, what did I just do? Well, it looks like I just did a purl row with the white. So that tells me that I'm probably just finished 3 or 7 or 10 or 14. Those are the purl rows that are all just the one color. I know though that I'm still fairly early on, so I do know that it's a 3. But the important one is that you see that you've got one color coming off the right, one coming off the left. What that tells me then is it's time now to slide that work down to the other end and then complete the second row of that sequence by using my other color. So on 4 now, this solid color square on the wrong side is a purl. So I'm going to purl with my multicolor, and then I'm going to slip my white color. This time though, I'm slipping it with the yarn in front because I have the wrong side of the work facing me, and I want to keep those slip stitches on the wrong side of the work. If I did slip stitches on the right side, then they would go across this, and I'd have a strand of my multicolor going across my columns of slip stitches, and that would kind of wreck the look. So let's go ahead and do that. I think we'll do this one more row, and then that might be all I'll need to show you this time. I'm looking forward to seeing your color combinations and how you work this up in the colors you've chosen. So I'm going to purl one, and then I'm going to slip one with the yarn in front. So I'm going to keep the yarn in front, which is where it is since I'm purling anyway. And again, just slip that point to point right over to my right needle. And then I'm going to purl 4. Now the slip stitch columns aren't quite as apparent on this side as on the other side. You can always turn it to look if you need to, or you can just count. I knit 4 and then I'm going to slip 1, or purled 4, sorry. And now I will purl 4 more. Now, if any of you have done brioche or fisherman's rib or any of those types of knit stitches, you'll be familiar with this sliding the work back to the other end of the needle. Oh, I blew right on through that because I was talking. There we go, slip, and then purl. Make sure I didn't miss one. Nope, we're good. Anyway, if that's the case, you'll be familiar with this method of slipping the stitches or sliding them to the other end of the needle to finish the second half of the sequence. It's kind of fun to do though. Like I said, I think it produces a fabric that is really interesting and looks harder than it actually is. It goes pretty quickly, and unless you're talking and trying to film a video, you can kind of do it without thinking too hard about it. Okay, I'm at the end, so my last slip one, and then purl, which is my row 4. So I've just finished row 4. I know I'm at the end of that 2-row sequence now because both my yarns are at the same side again. So now I turn my work, mark off that row done, and I will go on to row 5. So let's just take a look at the chart. So row 5 is just going to be a knit row of color A, and then slide all the stitches back to the right-hand side again, and do a knit, slip, and 4 knits and a slip, and 4 knits and a slip. And remember, since we're on the right-hand side of the work now, you're slipping with the yarn in back so that it's on the wrong side of the work. And then 7 is going to be just purling all the way across. And then here's the difference is 8, we're back on this side again, so we're going to be knitting all the way across. So we've got 2 rows of our color A in a row here. So after row 7, we are not going to be sliding the work to the other side. We're just going to turn and then start this side. And it's where the numbers are on the rows that indicates how that works. So I'm going to do a few more rows and maybe get up to this spot, and then I'll show you. So I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're back. I've just completed row 7, which was a purl of color A. And before I go on, I want to take a minute. I forgot to mention that this pattern also gives you the written instructions as well as the chart. So if you're more comfortable following written instructions, you can. And the written instructions are quite specific about where you need to slide the work and to the other end of the needle, and whether the right side or the wrong side is facing you at the time. So if it's easier for you to start with that, please start with that. Once I got going, I found that working with the chart was much easier to do. So, all right, so I got done with row 7, and this is where I was telling you that row 8, the number is over on the right side again, which tells me the right side should be facing me. And I'm just using color A again, which makes sense because here's my color C hanging out over on the other side, but I'm not sliding it to the other end to go use that one. I'm doing 2 rows in a row, 2 rows, one after another, of color A. This one was purling because that's the wrong side. Now I'm going to do a row of knitting with color A on the right side. So I will go ahead and turn my work like normal. Here's my color A waiting for me, and I will knit across. Now I'm going to knit over here to a mistake I made on purpose that I want to show you because I want to show you how to fix it. So let me just start knitting with color A. And what I did is on one of the slips on the previous row, I slipped it with the yarn in the wrong place. I was supposed to slip it with the yarn in front since I was working a wrong side row to keep that slip on the wrong side of the fabric, but I did not. So here, if you can see right here, you see that pink strand going across my row, my column of slip stitches? That's because I slipped with the yarn on the wrong side. So when I get over to here, we're going to stop and I'm going to show you how to fix that. As I like to say, every so often you should stop and admire your work. And if you take a look at this, you'll see that that's a pretty glaring error with that pink stripe going across this column. This should be an uninterrupted column of slip stitches in color A. So let me get over to that. Almost there. Let me grab my Fix-It tool. Here's my handy dandy Fix-It tool with a hook on one end and a pointy end on the other. All right, so I'm here where the mistake is. And this is the offending piece right here. That should be on the back side, not the front side. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to simply drop this off, and you can do this no matter how far up it is. I'm going to drop that, and now this was the purl row that I just did on the previous row, and here's where the slip stitch is in the wrong place. All I have to do is move it to the back of that loop right there, and then I'll go ahead and insert my Fix-It tool in. I ignore the colored bar because that was the slipping, and now I'm going to re-knit this one, put it back on the needle, and now my problem's fixed. So if you catch it soon enough, you only have to go down that far, but you can go down as far as you need to. If you see it down here, you're just going to drop down, but you're not going to ever use the hook to pull through that color C. You're going to leave those bars behind because they should have been left in the back side of the work, and this slip stitch column is all of your color A. So I hope that helps. If you have any trouble with that, come and see me and I'll show you. I can help you walk through fixing it if you need some help. So this is row 8, and then we are going to proceed with row 9, which again shows us 9 and 10 are working from the wrong side of the fabric because 9 and 10, those numbers are on the left side of the chart. And right now, where are my yarns? Both of my working yarns are hanging out here, which means I'm ready to turn and start working the next 2 row sequence. Row 9 is going to be a purl with my multicolor, color C, and a slip, 4 purls and a slip, all the way across until the last stitch, and it will be a purl. So let's do that. Now you're going to keep doing this sequence of 14 rows. Purl, and I'm going to slip again with the yarn and back, facing the wrong side of the work, 4 purls. So you're going to continue doing this 14 row sequence until you get to 36 inches or your desired length, whatever you prefer. I'm curious to see if this panel grows as much as my panel 1 did. This panel has a little more structure to it with these slip stitches, and so it could be that it doesn't grow as much, but I'm really not sure. So we'll see. So I'm going to go to 36 inches, and then I will block it and measure it again and see what I end up with. But you're going to do that until you get to the desired length. but you're going to end after a row 7 or a row 14 because we want to have one row of just your color A at the top, and then you can use color A to bind off according to the pattern. So there's 4 and a slip, and 4. I think you're going to find that this panel is not going to roll as much as panel 1 did. Panel 1 being all stockinette with that intarsia going up the center. Stockinette, as you may know already, tends to roll quite a bit. In fact, when I blocked my panel 1, I blocked it upside down because it was a lot easier for me to pin out those rolled edges than to try to pull them out from underneath. All right, so there we go. That is row 9. And then row 10, I don't turn yet. Row 10 shows the 10 on the left-hand side. So I have to now slide the work back and use my color A, and I'm gonna purl a row because I'm on the wrong side. So those plain squares mean purling all the way across. No slipping anything or counting anything at this point. I'm just gonna purl all the way across. So let me do that, and then we'll finish up with any last few things I wanna tell you about this panel. I keep wanting to call it a square since that's what we've done in other cases, but it's a panel, 5-inch wide panel. Remember that as you're working through this class this year, as we do each panel each month, learn a different method of color work. If you run into any trouble, you have access to Help Desk on Wednesday and Saturday afternoons from 1 to 2:30. Just bring this project in and I'm happy to help you with it. There's no charge for that, as long as it's the project you're working on as part of a paid class. We will purl all the way across. Now this panel is using just 2 colors. I know that some of you are using more colors than called for in the pattern, more than the 3. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. You don't have to be stuck to your color A always being the same one in all of your panels, and B and C. You can mix it up and make the colors whatever order you want them to be in, because this is your project. You can do it the way you want to do. All right, so that was row 10. So now I know that row 11 starts on the right-hand side again. Both of my yarns are both on this side together, so it's time to turn the work rather than slide. So 11 and 12, 13 and 14 are all very familiar looking rows to you. And here is what this is going to look like. You're going to end up with 3 stripes of your color C, and then you've got a double stripe of your color A, and then striping individual stripes 3 times with color C again, and then that double. And with that double stripe of your color A in conjunction with this slip stitch column of color A, it makes it look like a grid. Really pretty. I'm enjoying it. All right, so carry on. If you have any trouble, please let me know. And I look forward to seeing your finished panels and how your colors are working out. Bye-bye.